Edith Fuller Chambers Charitable Foundation, the Beaumont Convention and Visitors Bureau, Jefferson County, and members of the Art Museum of Southeast Texas. If you're not a member of the museum, you may want to consider joining. Membership is the backbone of the museum. We send out mailings. You get a discount in the cafe. You get a discount in our lovely gift shop. And we have lots of events going on. We have a book club that meets quarterly. We have a collectors club that meets. We've got art classes for children. We do workshops. We're a very, very busy museum. So think about joining the museum and supporting us. Like I said, your membership is the backbone here. And we do have a booth or a table set up that is manned by our one of our board members, Kathy Hendricks. She's holding up membership brochures back there. She would love for you to be your customer tonight. To find out more about the National Endowment for the Arts grants and how they impact individuals and communities, visit www.arts.gov. And I am now going to turn it over to our curator of exhibitions, Caitlin Clay, and she's going to give you some more information.
Thank you, Lynn. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Art Museum of Southeast Texas. My name is Caitlin Clay, and I'm the curator of exhibitions here at AMSET. I'm so pleased to see you all here tonight, joining us for the opening reception. Now, I have two wonderful speakers who will be joining me tonight. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation. We're going to talk about Harry and his art making, about this exhibition, and I know there's some family members here, so we hope that you might chime in at the end if you have any comments or questions. Before I read the biographies of my esteemed conversationalists, I would also like to thank the rest of AMSET staff. An exhibition like this doesn't come together easily, and everyone who works here does an incredible job at helping me create these fabulous exhibitions that you get to come see. I'd also like to extend a personal thanks to Bob, because he's been an incredible person to work with to put together an exhibition. Y'all don't know all the logistics that go into these kinds of shows, but Bob, you made it so much easier, and I really appreciate it. I'd like to thank the family members. I haven't got to meet you all yet tonight, but I hope I will have a chance to meet you. Thank you for loaning your artworks for this exhibition. It's such an incredible body of work to show, and I'm so thankful that you led them here to AMSET so that we can show them to our community. I'd also like to personally thank Sam Houston State University, the Special Collections, and the College of Art and Media very kindly loaned us artworks from the museum's different collections, and so you have some wonderful examples of Harry's work, like Views of Texas, which is right behind me in the grid, that typically you wouldn't get to see unless you were visiting the university. So thank you, Sam Houston University. Okay, my two speakers who are here tonight are Bob Russell and Donna Tennant. Donna is a Houston-based writer and editor who writes for various publications, including Arts and Culture Texas, Glass Tire, and Visual Art Source, a national online magazine based in Los Angeles. Her writing career began when she was appointed art critic for the Houston Chronicle and continued as an editor at Southwest Art magazine. Donna has contributed to many other publications, including Art News, American Artist, Houston City Magazine, and New Art Examiner. Donna has written many catalog essays, including the one that you can read in the handout at the opening of the show. Donna has a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Rochester and a Master of Arts from the University of New Mexico. She taught for 5 years at the University of Houston Downtown and Lone Star College. Donna lives in Houston with Henry Hunt, who serves as her editor and writing partner. Henry is related by marriage to Bob, who is Harry's stepson. Please join me in welcoming Donna Tennant. And Bob, I think we've established you're Harry's stepson. But Bob is also, in his own right, a practicing artist, musician, and the gallery manager at Andrew Durham Gallery in Houston, Texas. If you'd like me to put a little plug in, they have a reception tomorrow. So if you're from Houston or going that way, stop by the gallery. He has been an incredible partner in helping me to arrange this exhibition, and Donna has also been incredible in writing the essay for this show. So again, please join me in welcoming Donna and Bob. We're going to pass the microphone. Okay. And I know I've been sick, so we're just going to pass it. But this is kind of an informal conversation. I thought we sort of established how we all know Harry or came to know Harry. Obviously, we mentioned multiple times for his stepson, but if you want to speak a little bit about sort of that familial relationship, and then Donna, being an art critic yourself and being familiar with the Houston art scene, and then being married or having a partner who's related to Bob as well, maybe we could start there.
Great. I met Harry when I was 16 years old. My mother played string bass, and she joined a trio that Harry was the trumpet player in. They would play every Thursday night at Ellington Air Force Place, the club down there, and as they got to know each other, started dating, and became close friends, and that's how I met Harry. Harry, we spent a lot of time in my junior and senior year in high school. We helped build a beach house in Bolivar. We took trips to New Orleans and different places that he really enjoyed. It was just a real joy getting to see the energy that Harry had for art. I never saw him when he didn't pull a pencil and a piece of paper out to draw a sketch of somebody in a restaurant, or maybe pull a napkin off of the table to do a sketch of something. So it was very inspiring growing up with Harry. Music and art, those are both of my passions, and I feel like that had to do with my growth also. So, but Harry was just an incredible artist. He loved life and really just enjoyed life to the fullest.
So I've known Bob for quite a while now. He is, as I said, we call him my cousin. And so I had no idea about Harry until Bob called me and said he was very excited about this show, and he brought all of the paintings to Andrew Durham Gallery, where I think you went and we went separately, and he brought the sketchbooks, and I spent a couple hours there looking at them, photographing them, and it was really a wonderfully immersive experience. Plus, Bob was telling some really great stories, and I had done some research on Harry, and there really wasn't that much out there. I think he just loved to paint, he loved to draw. He didn't worry about, since he taught at Sam Houston State, he didn't worry about selling. He didn't worry about dating them, titling them, things that galleries make you do. And museums. and so I did learn, I actually learned quite a bit, and in my research I came across several students who talked about how he had influenced them in their work, and now they're mature artists, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I feel like he's like a giant eye. He was always looking, just and embracing life. So, and I also heard he was a little wacky, fun, enthusiastic, and just a really cool guy. So.
Thank you both. I also did not know Harry personally. I didn't know of Harry until Bob, you brought him to my attention. It's kind of fun being a young curator because people are constantly coming to you and they're like, do you know this artist? And I'm like, I do not, but tell me more. So it was really exciting. Bob sent me, I think, a file of a bunch pictures in it, and he's like, oh, these are interesting. They were a little bit dark, and so, in terms of value. And he said, I've got them all together for you to come see. And Donna mentioned that she went and saw them as well in one place, which is, guys, again, incredible to go to one place and see all the works you're considering for a show instead of, I would love to come to all of your houses and said hello and had tea, but it did save me some time. And I remember walking into the gallery and I was just blown away by the colors and the compositions, and it was so exciting to get to see them all in person. And so we have been working on this show, a year and a half at least, maybe a little bit more than that. That is typical for most museums. They might even work 2 to 5 years out in advance. So when you come to the opening reception, this is kind of the climax of a lot of work that's going on over a long period of time. And let's see, I was wondering, so for those of you who may not have read the wall text yet or read Donna's essay yet, which you absolutely should read and take home with you. For those of you who might not be aware, the show is actually based around pairing the paintings with pages from Harry's sketchbook/textbook called Composition Devices for Landscape and Seascape Painting. And when I was first looking at all those paintings in the Andrew Durham Gallery with Bob, I took all these notes, and like Donna was saying, there's no titles, there's no names. And I had originally thought, oh, we'll do a survey or like a retrospective, because Harry's passed and there haven't really been any shows of his work. It's very hard to put together a survey in chronological order when there are no dates to go on. So I was really perplexed. I was like, how am I going to put together this show? And then Bob said, I have this sketchbook/textbook that Harry published from 1970. Would you like to see it? And I said, absolutely. And he mailed it to me. And as I was looking through it, I realized this was my solution to curating this exhibition, which is pairing these artworks with different devices, where Harry is trying to teach students how do you set up a composition that's well balanced. And what was really neat is looking at his own sketchbooks and seeing that he was already doing that. And if you study some of the sketchbooks that are on display, you'll see that he has graphed out his designs, and he's also writing in what kind of colors he thinks he wants to use. And so for Bob and Donna, from the standpoint of an artist and gallery manager and an art critic, what appeals to you compositionally about Harry's artworks?
Well, I think the fact that you brought up the composition, the way he would put the elements together, Harry was a master of it at perspective. Remember, that's one of the first things he tried to teach me about. I already had some learning of it. Perspective is a really important tool that Harry used in his work, and the way he would layer the subject matter to give depth, and the way he would use darks and lights to create more depth. He really had a really strong eye that he understood the way that a painting should be put together that would read so well, that would draw you into it. And I think his colors are just, he really has some amazing colors work, so that's what I would say.
The way he organized the sketchbook was, it sort of dictated the show. So it starts with landscape, and he talks about overlapping planes, the funnel effect, which is basically one-point perspective, which I even learned that as an art historian. The stage, where you're kind of looking at something on a stage. The high horizon, the low horizon. There's one right over there with a very low horizon above the house, that one, the lighthouse. And the dark foreground, the background, the vertical and horizontal lines. And then he went into light, which of course is very important in his work. the light is whether, he uses backlighting to create silhouettes. He uses side lighting to create emphasis. And he actually has diagrams, and he uses arrows and draws how your eye moves around the canvas. And then, of course, the sea. I feel like he just loved the sea. I mean, it's just his first love. The boats, the beach, the water, the sunsets. And then, of course, he loves Cezanne. And so there's a whole section on Cezanne. So it was organized very, very thoughtfully. And in the sketchbook, opposite each of these pages was a blank sheet for the student to practice, which if you look, there's a computer screen back there. You can actually thumb through the book itself, the scan, so which is really wonderful. So.
Thank you. I think the sketchbook textbook is so interesting as part of sort of his teaching legacy, and that's what I began to sort of focus on for this show is how could we continue his teaching legacy. And for those of you who don't know, Harry was a professor at Sam Houston State University. He was the professor of painting for over 30 years, and he was also the first art professor to receive the title of Professor Emeritus, which is often a title given to professors after they retire to establish recognition of their achievements and their lifelong career as an educator. And so it was really important that he was the first art professor at that university to receive that title. He also had other accolades. The Texas State Legislature chose him in 1980 as the Texas State Artist. That accolade is a little confusing in the name because you're like, Caitlin, he lives in Texas. He is a Texas State Artist. But Texas State Artist actually is an award you can receive from the Texas Legislature. They've been giving it out since 1971. At the time, they only selected 2 artists, and then in 2001, I believe, they started selecting artists based off of 2D and 3D work. And these artists are supposed to symbolize the great spirit of artistic practice in Texas. And so if you look closely at some of the paintings on display, you'll actually see he has painted in Texas State Artist since 1980, which I don't know if he went in after the fact, because again, there's no dates on any of these paintings. But it's a really nice touch that he added to his paintings. And when we talk about touch, I think the sketchbooks, his personal sketchbooks that we have, really demonstrate that human hand in his paintings. And I just adored going through the sketchbooks. My background is also in art history. And so getting to know an artist through their sketchbook feels very intimate and personal. I had a really hard time deciding what pages to leave out for you all to see because there's so many good sketches. And some of my favorite notes, actually beyond the sketches themselves, are like he would write, I need to buy brownies by Thursday. Where am I buying brownies? And then there's one page where he took attendance for his painting class because I guess that's all he had on him at the time. So you personally get to know Harry through his sketchbooks. And I was wondering, I know you both have looked through the sketchbooks, if you have any fond, not necessarily memories, but like interactions with them, where there was something in those sketchbooks that really spoke to you.
Well, I think really one of the things that I like so much, besides the point that he made all the notes he would for the different paintings that he would do when he got back to the studio, but some of the notes, like you said, he had to pick up some supplies or just some of the mundane, everyday things that he would need to write down. I think there was even one, in one of the sketchbooks, he talked about the class and how he was not very happy with the way the class had performed that problem or something, but it was a great insight into his thought process. I will say that Harry really focused on his work and he expected everybody else to be serious about their work, and so it would frustrate him if the students weren't really dedicating themselves as much as he thought they should. So I could understand why he would write it like that.
So when Harry moved to Ohio, and after he retired, or shortly before he retired, he did over a dozen murals in Fayette County, Ohio, and you can find those online if you look. And he made notes about those murals. He did sketches, and he talked about colors and sizes, also commissions, I think. And but one thing that struck me, and I think we need to talk about his traveling, his love of traveling, but he did portraiture, beautiful portraits, and you would think you don't see portraiture here, but he could really capture the essence of a person, and he could do it all. He did still lifes, he was great with watercolor, and watercolor is really challenging if you've ever tried it. So, I mean, you kind of get a feeling of what a complete artist he was in his sketchbooks.
Donna, you briefly mentioned that as a professor, Harry didn't necessarily need to rely on gallery sales in order to, make an income. He did do commissions and murals that we know of, but when you're in the art world, inevitably you end up teaching or being a speaker or something to that extent. There's a lot of education that comes with working in the arts. And how do you both think that being a professor might have affected his practice?
I'll let you start with this.
Wait, could you repeat that?
Yeah. How do you think being a professor might have affected his practice? So Bob, you said that he was very, not strict, but he expected a lot.
Yes, I think he took a lot from teaching. He brought a lot to the class, but he also, I think the students helped spur him on to do things. I know that he would come to Houston on Fridays after he had his last class on Thursday, and would get right to work on new projects. And something in class that excited him about. But he really enjoyed teaching. I mean, it was something that really brought energy to his life and to his art. So.
Well, I think that this book, the sketchbook workbook, was, I think when he got to be a certain age, like late 40s, right? He really wanted to have something that would live on beyond his lectures. And so he really sat down and kind of outlined all of his devices and actually did drawings or found sketches. And so that to me is really his legacy. I mean, the day-to-day of teaching, I mean, I know it can be a grind, and you have students who, they just take it for an elective. I certainly had that experience, but I'm sure he had some very serious students who went on to become artists. But I feel like the sketchbook, I think this show, the great thing about it is that you've kind of landed on a really essential part of his legacy.
Thank you so much. Speaking of legacy, I do know there's quite a few family members here in the crowd. If you feel comfortable, would you raise your hand if you're related to Harry in some way? Okay, how wonderful. Would anyone like to talk a little bit about Harry if you knew him, or share maybe a fond memory? Anyone at all? It's okay. Everyone's a little shy. That's okay. I understand. This is a microphone and we have 2 cameras on us, so that can be a little daunting. when I initially put the show together, I was going to call it Texas Landscapes, and then I realized they weren't all Texans. Because he was going to the West Indies, he was traveling to Mexico, like Donna mentioned. A few years right before he retired, he made a home in Ohio, and then he moved up there sort of permanently, but he was traveling a lot. He enjoyed traveling to other parts of Texas, like West Texas. So being a professor sort of gives you that leeway to travel, whereas again, you wouldn't be so dependent on making artwork to sell so that you would have an annual income. So you'll see in this exhibition, there's places that look very familiar if you're from our area. We have, the beach houses and the lighthouses of Bolivar, the oil refinery behind Lynn. I had to ask Sam Houston to please let me borrow that one, and they were so kind because it was the only one I'd come across that sort of represents the oil industry of our area. But then you'll also have paintings of New York, like the one that's behind my dad. Thank you, Dad. And all different places all over Texas and the United States. So there's a wide variety of landscapes and seascapes for you to see tonight. Does anyone have any questions for myself or my two speakers? Andy Coughlin, always coming in clutch. Let me give you this microphone.
I'm just interested, is the sketchbook still you printed it presumably for students and classes? Is the sketchbook still available and published? And if not, are there any plans to publish it?
Bob, I'd like to hear your copy.
To my knowledge, that is the only sketchbook that is around. I know when I was going through the house, after my sister's death, that was the only one that I had my own copy, but I found no others. I don't know if there would be any way to republish that or not, but it is a great tool, and it's a wonder, as you can see by the pictures on the wall. He did a very fine job of illustrating the directions of the composition. So
the pages on the wall do not represent all of the pages in the textbook. We do have Bob's copy on display behind the majority of you near the wall text, and there's an iPad that you can actually go through and see scans that include all of the pages. But at this point, Andy, it's not currently in circulation, and it is not available for purchase. And on the secondary market.
$46 or $55.
how about
There you go. I see a question in the corner. Let me give you the microphone. It's so that people online can hear you.
Yeah, I had a question. So do I understand that was a textbook his students had to go purchase to write on the blank, draw on the blank pages? Or what was that? Was that his actual?
the textbook?
Yeah, so when you,
That
as a
was something-
student, would he say, okay, this is the book you need, you go to the bookstore, and that's one.
And that was the one that he did for the school. That was a project that he did for the students of his classes. It's the way I understood it. Whether it was published and sold anywhere else, I don't know. Lynn says she saw some copies
It's on eBay.
on eBay. So
I think I'm gonna get one for the museum, so y'all don't bid until I
so that's news to me. I know I have my copies.
Okay, we have another question or a comment. Here you are, ma'am.
I don't have a question. I would just like to introduce 3 of Harry's cousins on their father's side, my 3 sons, Johnny, Dave, and Donnie.
Oh, if you have raised your hand and want to state how you're related to Harry, please raise your hand again.
He was my grandfather. Grandfather. step-grandfather, but that's all I ever knew was him, so.
Anyone else want to state how you're related?
He said it was step.
Oh, wonderful. It's almost like a little family reunion. That's so exciting. I will say I had to make an Ancestry.com account to look Harry up because at one point there was a question of where he was born. Because when, Donna mentioned there's not a lot of information about Harry on your general Google search. And so when I was Googling Harry, I came across a Library of Congress oral interview. He was actually in the Navy, he served during the Korean conflict, and they interviewed him later in life to talk about his experiences while fighting in the conflict. And in the first 10 seconds, and this was an hour-long interview, y'all, the first 10 seconds, his birthplace comes into question. The interviewer says he's born in New York City. And I emailed Bob and said, do you know anything about this? Is he really not from Port Arthur? And we looked back at the obituary and it said yes, he was born in Port Arthur. We looked at his twins' obituaries and he was born in Port Arthur. And so I was just intrigued and I actually found the birth certificate. And I also found his draft notice of him joining the Navy. And he signed his name and he put his mom's name and he actually joined here at the Port of Beaumont. So he grew up in Port Arthur, he went to school there, he was very familiar with the port because he would be around the ships during the summer and he would work on them. And then somehow he ends up over here in Beaumont and decides to join the Navy. And he goes just down the block to the Port of Beaumont and he signs up. So that was really cool to see the original documents with obviously the same signature that we're seeing on the paintings and sort of connect with Harry that way historically.
Also, the Coast Guard connection with that's where he did his original drawing for the Coast Guard, that he got the love for the sea, along with growing up in this area.
Yeah, so it's also worth noting that Harry is one of only 10 artists that are officially in the Coast Guard's art collection. So it's very surprising, but a lot of different entities that are not related directly to the arts will often have art collections, like the Dallas Cowboys actually has their own art collection, and the Coast Guard has their own art collection, and there are, I believe, 8 of his paintings in the Coast Guard collection. You can actually Google the Coast Guard's art collection, you can see some of those paintings on there. Any additional questions for us? No. Yes.
Would you share the story about the flagship?
Flagship?
I'm sorry?
The flagship.
Oh, one of his projects, one of his commissions that he did in Galveston at the old Flagship Hotel. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been in that, but he was commissioned to do a painting on each floor as you got off the lobby. And they were in this format with the grid, and each floor had a different flagship painting that he did. So there were 9 paintings of his that were in the flagship. Really beautiful paintings. And I think I don't know what happened to those paintings, but it was a great series of work.
So the flagship was on a pier. I don't know, I've stayed there, but it's now the pleasure pier, right? The carnival and everything. But also I saw where he worked as the manager of the Galvez for a time. And also Bob was telling us that he loved Frank Lloyd Wright. He designed and built an octagonal house on Bolivar Island, and Bob worked on it with them. And I think you all remember that house, I think you said. And also, they had a cabin in Burnett. He loved West Texas. So, I think all these things add a lot to the color of the...
I will say one other thing, that there was a company in Port Arthur called Patco, which was a Port Arthur towing company. I think a gentleman by the name of Fetterman owned the company. Harry became good friends with theirs, and they invited he and my mom to take a trip up the Mississippi River, which is where they did a lot of their towing. And on the trip, Harry did a series of paintings and lots of sketches, and my mother was writing a history of the Mississippi River. So that was a trip that they really enjoyed a lot. They spent a lot of time in Burnett, outside of Burnett, drawing, and my mom would look for fossils and arrowheads. So they enjoyed traveling.
Well, please join me again in thanking Don and Bob for our wonderful conversation tonight. Before I let you all go to finish enjoying the show, I would be remiss in not announcing some of our upcoming events. You, of course, have come to this wonderful reception, and our next event is our book club meeting next Tuesday. We are reading 2 books, One Woman Show and Metropolis Stories, both by Christine Colson, and they're very short books, so if you pick them up over the weekend, you can definitely join us in conversation on Tuesday. Another big event that we have is our annual Eat a Bug Family Arts Day. So if you want to come eat a bug, you interested? He says no. There will also be other nonprofits who will be joining us in celebrating this October Family Arts Day. The local heritage folklorico dancers will be here. We'll have sugar skulls for people to decorate, and we will have art activities that are free and related to Harry's exhibition. There's also food, a concession-style food stand, so you can come get a hot dog or some nachos and enjoy the nice weather. Come make free art with us. And then lastly, our Collectors Club Houston day trip is Wednesday, October 23rd. We are going to visit with some Mexican folk art collectors. They very graciously invited us into their home. We'll be having lunch, Dutch treat, and then we're going to see Paul Manis's exhibition at Redbud Gallery, and then going to Casa Ramirez, which is a Mexican folk art store and display space in Houston. So if you're interested in joining the Collectors Club, please let Lynn or I know. You can also let Kathy know. She'll take your information on that membership brochure, and we'll get you signed up for the day trip. But overall, thank you all again. Have a wonderful night.